The Deercast is brought to you by Divana Hunting, Tom's Targets, Style, Game Larder by Tarrant Refrigeration, Harkeela and Fox Bullets. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Deercast. Today, I'm afraid you're just joined by myself and Tom on this episode, which is episode 43 of The Deercast. And Tom and I felt like it's been a little while since we've checked in with you and given you a bit of an update on what we have been actually up to ourselves. There's also been some interesting things come into the industry in the last, I think it was June the last time we actually sat down and recorded a podcast with the both of us. So in those last almost 6 months, I think quite a lot has come out, and we felt like this would be an opportune moment to sit down together and just chat through what's been going on. So Thomas, we're well into the fallow season now. We've had the excitement. We've had the excitement of the bucks, but we're now fully into the meat of the does. This is when Tom and I become very busy, and we've just this weekend had a successful cull day, which was good fun and quite successful, and I think achieved everything that we set out to. How's your season been going, Tom?
It's been I feel like I say this every year. It's been a bit of an odd one. So in August, September, we're obviously culling prickets, and I can't remember if we've spoken about this on an episode or something before, and we can't have done if we recorded the last one in June. But basically, I was getting really light prickets, like sort of sub 30 kilo prickets, and then once the seasons had progressed, then I was really struggling to find any prickets. So I'd say sort of October time, I was just really struggling to find anything at all. And then November's rolled round, does are in, but I definitely don't have the sort of big mobs out on fields that I had last year or the year before. I've got sort of really small, like little satellite groups. Like if I come across fallow, I'm coming across like 2 or 3 of them in a little group somewhere. And if I look at the sort of distance I'm having to travel to find them, I'm definitely going into more woods and hunting further afield to try and find them than I would do in a normal year, I think. But otherwise, I can't complain. I think as at today, I haven't done my tally, but I think I'll be on 50 something. So making progress.
That's not bad. We're in November, mid-November. So that's pretty good going for this part of the season. I mean, I completely agree, and I've had a very similar time. The carcass weights are a bit of a concern. On our cull day, we culled about 25 deer, and the average across bucks, prickets, and does was about 26, 27 kilos, I think, which I'd say is about what I would expect a sort of fallow doe to weigh, the sort of average one that I would shoot, and that's a couple of kilos lighter than it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. And I think certainly compared to other parts of the country, people will think, oh wow, that's a bit light. So that's a bit of a concern. I also feel like the fallow around here are getting more and more wily. They're cottoning on to, I mean, I think when we really sort of started with some of our bits of ground was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, in terms of really making a proper concerted effort. And I think they are now, they're really wise to us. And I think the result of that, for me anyway, is that when I see groups, I tend to see younger groups of deer who perhaps haven't learned the tricks of the trade yet. And the more mature groups tend to mob up and be in areas where they know they're safe.
I was just about to say, I think in our part of the world, you've got two different kind of habitats, if you like. You've got the areas where they're under quite a lot of pressure and people are mullering them, and then you've got areas where either next to nothing or nothing is being done. And I think those more mature animals have figured out where those safe zones are, and they've just literally migrated there. And then on the bits of ground that we look after, I'm not saying we do a fantastic job, but I think we do more than some people locally. We therefore either get the young animals that aren't as well educated, or we get the slightly more gregarious males because they're like, well, we'll go for a bit of a wander, see what happens. Whereas the more wily does are like, we know if you cross that fence, you're going to die, so we're just going to stay this side.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's very, very true. And actually, where we are in the Chilterns, there's been a real effort in the last 3 or 4 years to increase culling. I think landowners are really realizing that it's a serious issue. The National Landscape Board have been putting a lot of funding into it, and I think people are now starting to get the message. And I think that's exacerbating it even more. Those safe areas are becoming more and more safe, and the areas that they are, able to be shot are becoming a bit more scarce.
Can I publicly call 2 people out? Harry's going to really worry. I don't mean like personal people. Firstly, Forestry Commission, what the hell are you doing? In that the areas near us, they're either leased to people who do next to nothing on them, or you have Forestry Commission rangers that turn up twice a year and just kill anything that moves for a day and then disappear. Now, in neither of those scenarios really is that like proper deer management. And the Forestry Commission well, they're not supposedly, they are a public paid for body, and they're doing a woeful job of deer management in my eyes locally. So I'm afraid I'm calling them out. And then the second one, and this is going to probably get us struck off the airwaves, Harry, so apologies and remember me, is I think one of the other big culprits are a lot of the big shooting estates, because they do not a lot of deer control during, or certainly locally to us, they do very little deer control during the shooting season, and therefore give themselves essentially August and March to do the job. And with the fallow populations we've got, that just doesn't cut it.
No, I think you're completely right. I think the lease structure that the Forestry Commission have in our part of the world is really problematic. That they may well be, and I don't know what their target cull figures are, but they may well be meeting those. But it's a sort of case of how they're meeting those, because if they are going down and shooting a load of prickets and bucks, in the beginning of the year, that isn't really that helpful for your neighbours, because for the 95% of the rest of the season, the deer know that they're safe in there. So it is tricky. Maybe it works in other parts of the country, but I think down here with the quantity of the issue that we have, I'm not sure it really does. And I wonder how often those cull figures get looked at over the course of, if you buy a 10-year lease, are those figures being revised, or I don't know. But it certainly seems like the Forestry Commission ground around here doesn't get the deer management attention that it deserves.
No, I think a lot of the leaseholders aren't local, which I think does make a big difference, because if you hold a Forestry Commission lease for a site down here in Buckinghamshire, but you live in, I don't know, Staffordshire, then clearly you're not going to be coming down every weekend to give it any love or attention. You're probably coming down a handful of times a year, and with the greatest respect, none of us can do a good job a handful of times a year on big groups fallow. It's just not going to happen.
No, and we need to be more and more coordinated, as stalkers in the area. And I think we are starting to, as we are an insular bunch, but I think particularly down here, I've noticed that people are communicating a lot more, being less, shall we say, sort of possessive over their stalking, and actually embracing other people coming on to help or asking for help when they need it, and saying, I'm doing this cull day on this day, can you help out? All of those sort of things. That's really difficult if you live 3 hours away and you only plan to come down 3 times a year. Just from a practical perspective, that's really hard to manage. And actually, you're not going to be, if you're not local, you're not going to know you may well not know the people who manage the ground next to you. So I think as a collective of stalkers, we need to increase that cooperation rather than decrease it. And I just think the lease structure makes that quite difficult.
I agree. So there you go. There's my little calling out session done.
Yeah, no, I do get you. I do. And game shooting is here to stay, but it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive with deer management, But I do completely understand gamekeepers have got a lot on their plates, and it is not an easy job at all. But I think estates and landowners in particular need to realise fully the value that having proper deer management provides, or should I say the cost of it could, the cost that you could incur down the road if it's an issue that you don't really confront fully. And we're seeing that, I think, with clients. Tom and I are both land agents, and I think a lot of estates, a lot of farms are now realizing that you actually need to pay people to come and professionally cull deer in the numbers that are required, and that is a problem that just gets worse and worse if you don't confront it properly.
Yeah,
and expecting a gamekeeper to do it sometimes isn't really fair, or it really isn't really the answer.
No, I should probably have clarified my rant earlier, and I'm not blaming gamekeepers for all this. I think there are, as you say, there are a lot of estate owners that perhaps have unrealistic expectations of their gamekeepers, or place a kind of moratorium on the ability for anyone to come and do any deer stalking during the game shooting season, and so therefore you do get these places that are just safe havens during the shooting season, and then all of a sudden in March everyone locally is like, what the hell is going on, where have all these fallow come from? And they've suddenly been booted out from the woods where they've been harbouring all season. But
it is
there
difficult,
we go,
because we've looked at the business case for deer management down here.
It's not a strong one, is it?
There is no business case for deer management. If you were a businessman and a country sports enthusiast, and you said, I'm going to go and start a deer management business on the basis that I'm going to not charge for my services but make my money from venison sales, you would never make any money doing it. You wouldn't be able to shoot enough deer. It would just not. It's just completely impossible with the costs involved, and the fact that you can only get £2.50 a kilo for a headshot deer down here. So as a landowner, you can sort of understand why if there's no business case there's a big business case for game shooting, and landowners are becoming under more and more pressure as subsidies go, and the Labour government cracked down on agriculture.
This is
I
supposed to be an
can't blame them in a lot of
uplifting
ways.
podcast, Harry, and you're making me quite depressed now.
Sorry.
Can we move on to a lighter topic, and can I poke fun at you?
I'll get off my soapbox.
Can I poke fun at you for a couple of minutes?
Oh God.
Since we last recorded, you've got yourself a quad bike, haven't you, Harry? Which you've lovingly restored.
I don't know about lovingly, and I don't know about restored. I have got a quad bike.
It ran for a while, didn't it?
Well, it will run again. It will. Lazarus will rise. I bought a Honda, very reliable, 1986 TRX 350, which was the first quad bike that Honda ever made.
Is it really?
First bike they ever made. First year they made a quad bike. They made a trike before that, I think, but that was the first time they made a proper quad bike. And when it came out, it was absolutely bomb-proof. And it's 40 years old at this point. I don't think if you bought a quad bike today, you'd expect it to last 40 years. So the fact that it worked even for a short period of time is miraculous, to be honest. So yeah, I bought it. It ran when I bought it and drove and went through the gears. And I thought it's a bit tatty. It just needs a bit of TLC, service, maybe a bit, clean the carburetor out, do a few bits and bobs. I think I underestimated the scale of the challenge. I have taken the engine completely to pieces to replace the timing chain. I think I'm going to have to do piston rings now, because it's smoking, and I think it's letting some oil into the cylinder. I've serviced it completely. I've cleaned the fuel tank. I've replaced the. I've gone through and done a lot of stuff, but I still have a big list to do. And at the minute, I can't quite get the fuel system working right. It's a bit complicated, and I need a bit of help on it, I think. So yeah, it's not running. It should be running. It will run, but I've reached the. But it's been a really fun project.
I'm not sure if you're being serious now, because I believed you at the beginning when it was fun, but I feel like now it's got to that stage where actually you just want this to be over.
I think I'd expected to spend a couple of weeks sorting it out. I hadn't expected to spend maybe a couple of months sorting it out, and it's now quite cold, and actually fiddling with little tiny engine parts when your hands are frozen cold is quite hard work. So if it was still, 20 degrees and I could sit in the shed with Radio 4 on and I could just tinker away all night, that would be lovely. But yeah, it's not really the time of year for doing stuff like that, so I kind of just want it to work.
At
Not
what
gonna
stage
lie.
are you going to admit defeat and give it to a professional?
Well, I probably need to find someone who is a bit of like an agricultural engineer who can just come and spend a couple of hours with me sorting it out, because I'm sure the problems I have are pretty minor. I think it is literally just a fueling issue. The beauty of those bikes are that everything is very easy to fix. It's like Lego, and everything was very when it was put together. It was
You're saying
done,
it's easy to fix, but it's still broken.
yeah, but there's just been a lot. It's been the quantity of things that have been
Okay,
wrong with
okay,
it. It's
okay.
not been, I've probably done like 20, fixed like 20 things, but I've probably got 28 things that are wrong with it. So the one thing that is really hard about these quad bikes, and this is my advice to anyone who's thinking about buying an old quad bike, go and have a look at the spares you can get, because the particular model year, the 86, Honda obviously don't make parts for it anymore. There are aftermarket parts. There are parts on eBay, but they are pretty few and far between. Like if you want to find an OEM fuel pump for one of those, good luck, because you will really struggle, as I have done. So you end up buying aftermarket stuff and it doesn't fit, and you have to modify it and what have you, and then that's more things you have to think about, and um, but they are pretty bulletproof. Um, and when I had it running, it was pretty damn impressive in terms of like the stuff you could tow with it, and the messes that you could get it out of, and it kind of went anywhere. So yeah, it will work. I need to spend a bit more time and effort on it.
So on our recent cold day, CF Moto very kindly lent us an ATV, and I thought it was a U-Force U10 Pro. I've just had to double check. I thought that would be enough to convince you, Harry, that actually you need to get rid of the quad and get one of these instead. Because full indoors cab, tipping
Yeah,
back,
yeah,
winch, heated
yeah,
seat,
yeah,
Apple CarPlay,
yeah.
like, and it ran and it worked. Even had a bloody phone charger in the cab.
It worked. It was pretty flawless. It was really flawless. It was a great, great bit of kit, and it got absolutely everywhere. The only problem is I don't have £20,000 plus VAT to spend on said vehicle. Sadly, if I was a full-time deer manager or a gamekeeper, I would have one in a heartbeat. It was absolutely brilliant, and I think it's. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not an ATV expert, and I haven't tested a Polaris. Well, I've been in the Polarises, but I haven't tested like an equivalent 2025 one or a John Deere Gator 2025 one. But my understanding is it measures up pretty well, and in terms of price, they're pretty hard to beat, because they are just, Chinese manufacturers are just absolutely rinsing other vehicle manufacturers in terms of cost, because they can. And yeah, if I was professional, if I was full time, I would 100% have one. The other thing that's really nice about it is actually you can drive it on the road quite comfortably for the majority of like small journeys that you would do in a car. So like if you need to nip to the petrol station that's like 5 miles away, you could 100% do it in that. Or if you wanted to like get between bits of ground, you could easily do it in that. If you only lived like 20 minutes away, you could do it in one of those, and it would negate the need really to have a proper 4x4 as well. So they are a bit of a game changer in that sense. The one thing I don't know about is how long they last for. And I guess it's sort of time will tell on that front. But my understanding is that they actually make engines for quite a lot of other ATVs that go back quite a long way. So and they've got a pretty good track record. So yeah, I was super impressed by that, I have to say, and the comfort that you have from being able to do everything in the cab. You can tip the back, you can operate the winch from in the cab, you can even open the front window with a electric ram. You just so easy. And in the winter, when it's like 2 degrees, no one wants to be out on a quad bike because you're very exposed to the elements. You want to be in a nice heated cab. So yeah, I can see.
You're talking yourself into this.
Oh, I know, but
and £20,000 is only 333 fallow deer, Harry.
Oh right, well.
So there you go. You just got to go out and shoot 333 fallow deer this year, and then you can have a CF Moto Highlander.
There you go. I actually think the base model CF Moto is only about 15 grand, something like that. So I think
that's much more achievable.
Bit of a bargain, really. So yeah, I was pretty impressed.
That's only 166 fallow deer.
What? Oh, do that in a weekend.
Exactly. Right, sign us up. I was quite sold with it, to be fair, for all the reasons. For all the reasons you've just said, because
it was
having changed to a Hilux, which does have its enormous benefits in some ways. There is there are two fairly major disadvantages. The first one is that a Hilux is nay cheap to run or maintain. And the second one is if you've got any of those like really sort of nasty like woodland sites where you're culling a lot of deer in, getting a truck in and around those types of sites is actually a nightmare, if not impossible.
I thought, Tom, that Toyotas were supposed to be quite reliable. What are you talking about?
Harold, you've set me up there. I think what you'll find is that I don't want to say what I'm about to say. Basically, for all you listeners listening, my Hilux has had a number of what I'm going to describe as teething issues that hopefully are now behind me. So I've had most recently a wheel speed sensor, which meant the ABS and traction control wouldn't work or kept flitting on and off. We have had the clock spring, the fuel pump. Sorry, no, it wasn't the fuel pump. It was a fuel pump gauge, the instrument cluster, the cable to pop open the fuel filler cap, and I can't remember what else. But I mean, what I would say is that throughout all of this, it has continued running. Like little things have technically gone wrong and broken, but actually the vehicle itself has still been drivable throughout. So if you were
nothing mission critical.
No, if you were the Taliban in Afghanistan, you'd have carried on. You'd probably have taken the bulb out of the instrument cluster that was telling you the wheel speed sensor had gone, and you just carried on.
I think most people just put a bit of gaffer tape over it and move on with their lives.
Exactly. But diligently, I thought, well, you know what? Let's get it all sorted.
It is the difficulty with trucks, isn't it? Especially, the bigger ones. They are bloody heavy. And whilst, yes, they've got good four-wheel drive systems, it's still a lot of weight to try and get out of a muddy bit of woodland.
It's also the length of them. Mm-hmm. In that, if you say you go into a little bit of woodland to collect something you've shot, and you find like a track somewhere, and you go, okay, well, I'm going to turn around now rather than reversing the whole way back down the track. In a little thing like the CF Moto ATV, you'd literally probably just spin it around with one turn of the steering wheel.
Yeah.
In a Hilux or any other pickup that is available, you're doing like a 20,000 point turn because they're just so long that like doing a 180, it's actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
So I can see why something like the CF Moto would be massively appealing.
Yeah. My only comment negative about the CF Moto is the load bed is quite high. It is quite a big vehicle compared, I think, to other ATVs. Maybe it's just the way that modern ATVs are going, but it's quite imposing. It's quite big when you look at it. When you think of like,
It didn't feel it when you were in it though, did it?
No, it didn't feel big at all. But I think if you were, yeah, I think you'd have to devise some way to get deer into the back with a sort of crane or something, or a little winch or whatever. Because I think if you were on your own and you had like a 50-kilo fallow buck, you're really going to struggle to get it up to like pretty much almost
Like
chest
height, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tip the back, so I'm sure you could work something out. But yeah, that's the only downside. But with that, with it being quite high, it does mean you get good ground clearance, and you also get good road presence. So everything does have its sort of ups and downs. And I guess for the majority of people who are using one, that's probably a bit less of an issue than it is for stalkers. But yeah. Well, your Hilux is pretty much there now, Tom. Touch wood.
Touch wood. And it has made my life significantly better and easier in a number of ways. Like loading deer into the back of that. Well, we had how many deer in it on the weekend?
We had 20.
There you go. If anyone wants to know how many fallow you can fit in the back of a Hilux, 20.
We got 19 in the actual bed, and we had one on the back seats in a plasterer's bath. So you could probably have got 25 if you really wanted to fill up the back seats.
Yeah. And also, I don't think our stacking in the bed was perhaps as good as it could have been. Like I think we could have maximized space better.
Yeah, yeah. But you do want to also have the airflow, so you don't want to cram them in too tight. But yeah, I was quite impressed by that, I have to say. And they are bloody useful things. I really like the fact that yours has got the bigger engine as well for towing and things like that. It's an absolute machine.
Yeah. I'm very, very pleased with it. It's made my life a lot easier and better. Going to work now in back to like my day-to-day car, and I don't have to worry about still having like blood on the seat that I'm going to accidentally sit in is a dream.
Yeah. Or sort of on a Sunday night when you're half getting out of a woodland and you're like, I need to get to work on Monday morning. If I'm stuck, that is really quite inconvenient.
And you can leave all your stalking stuff in it. It doesn't matter. And then like when I get up in the morning to go stalking, I'm like, well, I know my sticks are in the Hilux because they wouldn't be anywhere else. Apart from when you leave them in the woodland by accident.
It is true. But the sort of quest for the perfect vehicle combo for the part-time deer stalker, I think, is a never-ending one.
It is, because I was trying to weigh up in my mind the other day. I was like, actually, if I made a mistake buying Hilux, maybe I should have got like an ATV like the CF Moto. And I was like, well, one of my bits of ground is a 40-minute drive away. I'm not sure I'd want to do that in the CF Moto.
But with your 3-litre, you could tow a CF Moto.
I could.
Or a quad bike.
After seeing your experience with a quad bike, I shall never touch one ever again.
I think it's partly because I'm not a very good mechanic, so I wouldn't let that completely put you off.
Do we finally have that on record?
I'm realizing my limitations here, but I'm learning. God, you've got to start somewhere.
True. Well, there we go.
You've got to start somewhere.
Talking of starting somewhere.
Oh yeah, good lead.
We've finally started our line of merch.
We have. Thank you to the guys at Streams with a Z for helping us out with that. But yeah, so we got a store. The link is it'll be in the description of this podcast. So
and on our website.
Obviously on our website. If you would like Deercast mug, Deercast hoodies, t-shirts, beanies, go to the website, check them out, see what you think.
I think it's been interesting. Or it's been like an interesting experience, isn't it? in terms of launching a merch line. It'd be interesting to see where it goes. And we've taken on board some feedback because some people have said, well, actually, I don't want a hoodie. I want a gilet that I can wear whilst deer stalking. So we have got a limited number of gilets as a sort of trial order, haven't we?
I didn't know you were announcing that. That's quite. I thought that was only for very exclusive members. But look, there we go. The
There you
cat's
go,
out of the
folks.
bag now.
I
We
think
only
I
have a
announced it
very
on
limited
Insta.
number.
Yeah, I forget how many we've sold now. We started with 5 mediums and 5 larges, and we've sold a few, and Harry's nicked one.
Yeah, so we haven't got very many of those left, but we will. It's a sort of, if people would like them, we'll keep ordering them. So and please do give us your feedback as well if you think I would like this, or this is a bit, this would be better as this. Please tell us, because yeah, we're all ears.
And really excitingly, I might have forgotten to tell you this actually, Harry. We did our podcast with Jack Millington. I think I'm getting that right, from Billy Tannery.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about deer leather products for deer stalkers.
Yeah.
And actually, someone else has messaged us to say, I also make stuff with deer leather. Would you be interested in working with me to potentially make something? I was like, absolutely.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Well, there you go. If anyone would like some deer leather products and they have a particular idea, we were thinking of sort of bullet holders, and sort of, I think stalking related equipment would be quite good, like a sling or something, or a knife sheath.
Yeah.
That would be quite cool, I think. But let's put it out there to you guys and let us know what you think would be quite cool. And we can see how we get on. But in all of this, the key thing is we are just trying to do more things to help us grow our channel. And please don't think we're doing merch to get rich and go on a nice holiday. Everything that comes out of it goes straight back into the channel, as with everything else. And we hope to be able to improve quality, bring more interesting guests, have help filming, be able to bring you guys more content. So yeah,
that's the way forwards. Bigger and better.
that is it. We just want this channel to grow and grow and grow. So yeah, go and check it out and see what you think. I'm trying to think
I was going to do another awful segue there.
Oh, right. Okay. What's next?
Talking of bigger and better, how about your new Hick Micro Alpex 4K, which is not only bigger, but possibly not better than your normal scope.
You can tell we rehearsed these, can't you?
Yeah.
My Hick Micro Alpex 4K.
Which you bought at the stalking show.
Which I bought at the stalking show. Thank you to Optics Trade.
We have done a video on it as well, haven't we?
We've done a video, yeah. The people seem to enjoy it, which was great. I like it very much. I think it's a great bit of kit. I think it's a bit of a disruptor. I think it's the thing that is. I think it is the bit of equipment that is going to really change the industry, because it is such good value for money, and it really, just on like
750 quid.
Yeah, and you can get them from even less than that now, I think. And if you were in the market for a traditional scope, I think something like that really makes you think twice, as it did me. So I think it is one of those products that really is going to change the game. For longer range deer management, open field, fallow culling, it is an incredible bit of kit, because you can range. It does the ballistic calculation for you. It's really good in low light, and if you want to go out foxing or you've got a night license, you literally just clip a torch to it and you carry on with your evening. And even if you don't have that, the way that it amplifies light makes it, I think you get an extra 20 minutes over any optical scope, even a sort of really high-end Swarovski or something like that. It just can't really compete, because it's literally artificially brightening an image for you. So I'm really impressed. The downside of all of these things is more technology, more complication, more things go wrong. I have had an occasion, just the one so far, where I've got out to go stalking and I've realized I've left it on. I mean, it should automatically turn itself off, but for some reason I got it out and the battery was completely flat. And that's not that fun because, it does make you slightly question your bit of kit, and you do have to remember when you get back to plug it in. And don't get me wrong, something you could really easily get used to, but it is another thing to remember to do. The easy thing to do is just to have a load of those batteries and just leave them on a charger and whack them in when you want or whatever. But I went up to Scotland to do a day stalking, and I changed the rifle scope over actually because I didn't really want the risk of something going wrong up on the hill, when you've travelled 8 hours or something to go stalking. So yeah, it is brilliant. It is really is brilliant, but they do have some downsides, I think.
Yeah, because I think we did a video on this actually, didn't we? We went out in sort of August, September for some fallow prickers, and I'm pretty sure we've got your shot on film through the Hick micro.
Yep.
But literally just before you shot your pricket, I shot one with and I have a Swaro Z6i on my rifle now, and I was literally only just able really to make out like the silhouette of where the head was to put the crosshairs, and mine was sub 100 meters, but you shot yours at, what was it, like 150 meters, and through your scope you could see everything, as in like every little detail. It wasn't just the body. I can see the silhouette of the body. You could see like where everything was.
Yeah. And it also is really helpful that you can record, because it means you can go back, and if you fluff a shot or something else happens, you can go back and play it back frame by frame and see where you went wrong. You can say, was the shot I took actually good, or was there something wrong with the scope, or was the zero knocked, or something like that. It is quite helpful being able to go back and replay that. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it's a great bit of kit. I just think you need to sort of change your processes in terms of, like, you need to factor in that you have an extra couple of steps to think about when you're going out stalking, which is not for everyone. But I think if you can get a setup that works right for you and you remember to do everything, then they can be really good. I don't think I would have it as my only scope. I think I'm in a fortunate position to have a couple of rifles, and it's quite nice sometimes just to go out and have something that's got some glass in it.
Yeah. Have you got quick on off mounts? Are you going to have like a quick on off mount for your sour that's got the Alpex 4K on, and then a quick on off mount that's got a normal rifle scope on, so you can swap between the two?
You could do that. You could quite easily do that. To buy, the thing is, the sour saddle mount, the actual sour one that I have that came with the rifle, isn't particularly good, and that's pretty well documented at this point. They are a bit flawed. If you can get aftermarket ones that are really, really good, but they're like 400 quid. So to buy two of them would be like nearly £1,000. And to drop that much just on mount so that I can easily change my scope over, I'm just not really sure it's worth it for me. So I'm sort of content that I've got one that's got a pick rail. I've got a pick rail on it now, and I can just sort of whip stuff on and off, and I might have to go and take the odd shot just to double check it. But yeah, if I had, again, more disposable income, you could quite easily do that. And the other really good thing, actually, that I didn't even mention about the Alpex is the fact you can have many zero profiles. So you can have, I think, 10 zero profiles, which means I have 2 zero profiles for the 2 different bullet weights that I've got. So we've got the 150 grain Fox and the 130 grains, and I'm sort of now using the 150s. But if I want to move down the weight to go and do smaller deer or something like that, I literally just go into the menu, change the zero profile over, and you can do that for different calibers as well. If you've got a blazer or a sour, and you can change barrels, You can literally do that, which is pretty incredible and a massive feature if you have one of those systems. So yeah, I think they're pretty cool. I'm really really excited to see where they go because I think we're at the stage like in like the mid 2000s where someone was like, oh yeah, I've got a mobile phone, and you'd have it on in like a holster on your waist, and it would be like the size of, I don't know, like a bottle of wine or whatever. It was fucking enormous, and like how fast that's all moved.
Is that the mid 2000s?
You're looking confusingly at me.
I feel like you're thinking of like the 90s.
When did the Nokia 3210 come out?
So I've just typed into Google 2005 mobile phone, and the
Yeah.
most popular mobile phone, of course, according to Google, in 2005 was the Motorola Razr.
Yeah, but like, okay,
Th-
when I was like I was young in 2005, and obviously I had like my dad's hand-me-down, which probably was from like 1995.
I was going to say
Um,
if you Google like 1990 mobile phone, I feel like that's what you're thinking of,
okay,
with like a
A
little aerial that you extend out.
Motorola or an Ericsson from 1995. That's what I had. I had a no, I had a Nokia. I had a
Yeah.
1998. That's it, a Nokia phone, and I had a little pouch for it on my waist.
Oh, you were a
Um,
cool guy.
yeah, I was really, really cool. I think
Are you
it was
thinking of
like
the
my
Nokia
dad's.
5110?
I don't know. I really don't know, but it was fucking
That is old
enormous.
school.
It was absolutely enormous, and like that was the genesis of the mobile phone, and I think we are coming. We're just literally coming out of the genesis, really, of the digital scope.
So you're
Um,
saying the Hic Micro Alpex 4K is basically a Nokia 5110?
all I'm saying is that in 10 years' time,
Does it do Snake?
you could probably like play Netflix on it. I'm saying in 10 years' time, you're gonna have an optical scope and you're gonna have a digital scope, and the form factor will be the same. They will look very similar because at the moment they are a bit. The majority of them, apart from the really new ones, are a bit clunky and they have quite a lot of bolt-ons. And like you look at the way that thermals have come in the last like 2 or 3 years, like when I got my thermal, if you wanted a rangefinder on it, especially the pulsars, you had to have a big block on the side of it that just made it really unwieldy. Bobby's just got the new Hic Micro Condor, and like it's got a rangefinder in it. You wouldn't even be able to tell.
Yeah.
And like that tech has moved on that's come leaps and bounds. And in 5, 10 years time, they are gonna completely wipe out the optical market, and it's gonna be. I'm just so excited to see where it all ends up. And like battery technology, I hope will all move with it. And it'll just become part of what you do. But yeah, it's just another one of those tools that makes deer stalking that little bit easier. It's all marginal gains, isn't it? All with all of these things.
Yeah. And I think going back to our very first conversation, when you're talking about large numbers of fallow, there is no such thing as an unfair advantage.
No, we
Like,
are very much here to do a job. If people are going to write in and say, well, it's not very sporting and what have you, yes, that is completely true, but that's not our objective here. We have a massive fallow deer problem where we are, and any advantage we can possibly get is something we'll jump on, to be honest, because it's they've got the unfair advantage of numbers, so we're trying to level the playing field in any way we can.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I do love to go out in the summer, shoot muntjac with my kit plough with a Spix power scope on it. I like to go up to Scotland and do the same. But for the sort of stuff we're doing now, the November, though, Carl, you've got to have good, reliable, efficient tools that enable you to do, longer range shots. Just because you need to make the most of every opportunity, don't you? You can't be there saying, "Oh, I can't shoot that because I haven't got a scope that doesn't have any zoom on it, or I can't work out the range or whatever." That's just not really an option.
No, it's true. It is true.
So that was a very, very long and drawn out explanation of my scope, but I'm very pro. And if anyone out there is thinking of getting one, just go and do it because they are the future. And I think you've got to get on board. and they're not expensive. They're really not.
I still can't get over that. I suppose because let's say you were a brand new deer stalker, or for whatever reason you were starting afresh with all your kit and equipment. Would you spend 750 quid to go and buy a Hick Micro Alpex 4K, or would you spend whatever that 2,000 and something pounds on a Swarovski Z6i? Like,
Yeah.
if you well, even putting like Swarovski aside, if you look at what normal scope, as in like an optical day, like normal conventional scope, what you could get for 750 pounds, it's not a lot.
No. No, it's not.
And I think I suppose what I'm trying to say is like the equivalent optical scope for 750 pounds is going to be a lot worse than a Hick Micro Alpex 4K.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you're a newbie, I think if your first rifle, I wouldn't get one because they are more difficult, I think, to use. They are complicated, and you've got to understand how to zero a rifle before you go out and try and do it with a digital scope because it can be confusing, as I learned. So I wouldn't recommend it for like your first ever scope. I would just go out and get a fixed power Schmidt and Bender 7x42 that you can sell for 300 quid and buy for 300 quid, and I'd learn on that. But then, yeah, if you were then to move up to something with like variable power, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really.
So are you saying don't get a Hick Micro Alpex 4K as your first scope because of how complicated all the ballistic stuff is?
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it's not that straightforward, I would say. It depends how techy you are as well. Like I think I'm quite used to dealing with stuff like that. And if you've had a lot of cameras and you used to like menus and what have you, then that's one thing. But like if analog is your normal modus operandi, you're gonna be a bit confronted with a bit of a learning curve on the digital stuff. And I think the optical scopes are better for teaching you the fundamentals. And digital it's just more to think about and more to go wrong. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily advocate them as a first time scope, but yeah, they're an incredible option. And I think the likes of Swarovski, Schmidt and Bender, Leica, etc., are a bit worried because Hick Micro is massively eating into their market share. It's going to be super interesting what happens to the optics market over the next couple of years.
The only thing, and I can't fully understand the reason, is that if you go on somewhere like the Stalking Directory or eBay, there seem to be a lot of second-hand Hick Micro Alpex 4Ks up for sale. And I can't tell if that's because people have bought one and then gone, oh my God, this is brilliant, I want to upgrade, and they've gone for something bigger and better, or if because they've got it and gone, oh, this is just too complicated for me, I'm going back to a conventional day-night scope. Conventional optical scope, or whether they've gone, actually, it just doesn't work for me, or I can't get it to work how I wanted it to work, or the advantage isn't as good as I thought it was going to be, or what it is. That's the only bit that slightly puzzles me.
I mean,
see a lot of them up for sale.
I just think if you were in the market for a Hick Micro Alpex, why would you buy a second-hand one?
Yeah,
like I would not buy a second-hand digital scope because you just don't know what's been done to it. And if you can buy a new one for 700 quid, what's the difference? You might save yourself an extra couple of hundred quid. I just don't think it's worth it. I think they're all sat there because people, I don't know why they've moved on. Maybe they've got something better. I don't know. Because they have brought out newer ones. Maybe they're just all sat on the market. I don't know. Difficult one.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. So, but I mean, you've moved away. You've moved sort of a little bit in terms of your scope setup as well recently.
I have. So I now have a Swarovski Z6i on both my Kiplauf and my Tikka, so my two deer rifles.
Epic scope.
It is an epic scope. The logic was I wanted to change the scope on my Kiplauf because my old Leica one, it had a max magnification of 12 power, And I just found that for head shooting stuff, it was just, in some circumstances, just not quite enough magnification. In some circumstances, I really like it being that wee bit higher. So I had quite strict parameters of what I was looking for. I wanted something with up to 15 power magnification, but an objective lens no bigger than 44 mils, because anything bigger than that, I think, looks out of place on the Kiplauf. And the only people who made something that fitted that spec was Swarovski, and it was the Z6i. So it was a 2.5 to 15 by 44 Z6i, and I got it, and I absolutely fell in love with it for a number of different reasons. I mean, for all the reasons you'd probably expect from a Swarovski in terms of like build quality, beautiful glass, like blah 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 blah. But the really like big thing for me is the reticle is a normal standard duplex reticle, but in the middle you've got a dot, a bit like the Schmidt and Benders. And for head shooting, for me, for my eyes or my brain or whatever it is, that is just like a really intuitive system, because you literally just put dot on head and squeeze the trigger, animal's dead. Whereas before with like my Leica scope that I had before, that was a standard duplex reticle, for whatever reason, my brain, I spent so long fighting the reticle, trying to get it in exactly the right place. And a lot of the time it would either take me far longer than it should have done, or I wouldn't get the shot I wanted because I was screwing around with it so long. Whereas the dot, I just on the head, bosh, done. And that was kind of my downfall, because as soon as I had one, I was like, right, I want to put exactly the same scope on my other rifle. In the end, I went for a Z6i, again, 2.5 to 15, but this time by 56. So on the Tikka is a 56mm scope, and on the Kiplauf, a 44mm scope. And just because I had to complete the set, I then traded in the binos for a set of Swarovski EL range 10x42s. So everything talks to, well, I say talks to each other. You put into the binos all your ballistic information for your rounds and what scopes you have. And when you range find something, it'll be like, okay, that deer is 150 meters. You need to come up 2 clicks on your Z6i. And you literally just go click, click on your scope, and that's it.
It's not a bad system, is it? It's not
It-
bad.
It is pretty cool.
But if you had a hit micro, you could do that in the scope, and it would also tell you where to aim.
And it would capture the footage of when you flap up, which I get really in my head when I miss, or if I clip a branch or something like that, and I overthink it for days afterwards. Whereas if I had that footage, I could just be like, oh, that's what I did. Never mind.
But you know, the Swaro stuff is pretty incredible. And the other thing to say about optical scopes is they hold their value and they last forever.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is a consideration. Who knows how long a hit micro Alpex is going to last? You know, it might be 10 years. I can't see it being 20 years. It's like a washing machine, isn't it? It's going to have a sell by date on like the electronics in it, because they're complicated bits of kit, and the batteries as well. You know, you're going to have to replace batteries. Whereas on those Swarovskis, you could leave it on a shelf for 10 years, pick it up, and go out stalking with it. And you know, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. So it's horses for courses, isn't it? And I think we'll see. I think you're absolutely right that we'll see over the next 5 years where it goes, because we could be sat here recording a podcast. I mean, can you imagine if we're still going in 5 years' time, Harry? In 5 years' time, we could be recording one, and I could be going, does anyone want to buy my Z6i off me for £5? Because it might have become worthless because day-night scopes have taken over the world. Or we could be sat here going, yeah, day-night scopes, they were a bit of a flash in the pan, weren't they? And we could all be using something completely different.
I think the markets are going to really entrench into each other. I think the people who like optical scopes are really going to double down on them, and I think the opposite is going to happen with the people who are converts. But I think the stuff like, you know, the Swarovski stuff is always going to have a market because it has such a cult following and it is so good. I think it's the more middle of the road optical stuff that is maybe going to suffer a bit. But There we go. Shall we talk about some industry news, Tom? There's been some changes come into the industry.
There have. There've been a few actually, haven't there? And this bit we haven't really rehearsed. I think to my mind, I think there's three things to potentially talk about. The first one is and I always forget the acronym for it, the British Wild Venison Quality Assurance Scheme, which I think came out last season but has now died a death, I think. It came out and it was like, this is what everyone should be doing. Everyone should sign up to this. It's really, really great. It's going to help us sell more venison. And I've literally never heard of it since, and I don't know anyone who signed up to it.
I don't either. But I think the barrier to entry is quite. I think the bar that it sets is it's not that difficult to me, but it's fairly high for the person who isn't a professional deer manager, and it's probably more aimed at the professional deer manager really, but I think the whole impetus behind it and the reason anyone would go for it is really a price incentive, and I don't think that's materialized. I certainly haven't heard of it materializing. I know in Scotland they have a similar system for Scottish quality assurance scheme, and I don't know what the situation with that is. So we are really talking about the English one, but I've never heard of a game dealer offering 50p a kilo more for quality assured venison. I haven't seen it on a bit of venison in the supermarket. Please, if you have, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's got to be the incentive.
Or if you're a member, let us know, and you're out there, because I'm willing to bet not many people are, and B, also what your experiences with it have been. It'd be really interesting to know.
I think if you were a big estate or you were a professional deer manager and you had the kit and the equipment and the lardering and everything already in place, it's something that is not that difficult to do. I think it's more for the people who aren't big outfits, actually getting the stuff together to meet that bar is quite high. So yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear as well.
And then the only other bit is kind of industry news. One which, everyone will have listened to it by the time this podcast comes out, but we're recording this before the episode has come out. Is we did I think a really interesting episode with Basque about the proposed lead ban, etc. And I think that is going to. Well, if it all gets kind of voted through and all does go through in terms of the proposed amendments, etc., I think that's going to shake up the industry a bit. And I know we've been talking about non-lead for years now, but actually there's not been a kind of hard date that everyone's had to work to until now. And then now there is, it's sort of like, oh God, this is actually really happening.
Yeah, I agree. And if you haven't listened to that podcast yet, I think it's a really interesting one. And we were very lucky to have a very eloquent guest who knew all the ins and outs of it. But yeah, that's going to, I think, have a pretty major impact on the industry. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, how the bullet manufacturers react to that as well. Because I think there may have been a few who were waiting to see if something like this would come out before they really put a lot of effort into developing, non-toxic ammunition.
The other thing, so Terry Bean from Bass joined us for that episode, and I think reading all the online forums, I think Bass get a lot of stick for being the ones that are responsible for the lead ban, or the proposed lead ban, if I can call it that. But actually, one thing that Terry made, I thought quite clear, was that there was a 2-year public consultation on this, and only 4,000 people responded.
Yeah.
Well, there's 147,000 firearms certificate holders in the UK. So literally no one bothered responding, and then they all turn around and go, well, why have Basques failed to stop this proposed amendment. Well, if all 147,000 of us had stood up and said, actually, this is ridiculous, and responded to the consultation, maybe we'd be looking at something different. But I sort of got the impression from Terry that he was like, well, what can we do? And I think from what he said, they did actually fight quite hard to, one, get a phased in approach, and B, only apply it to certain calibers in certain situations. Say the fact that anything smaller than a 243 has got, well, I say sailed through, has escaped, I think is a credit to the organisations like BASC, because others were involved in the lobbying they did.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's very easy to criticise the organisations, but ultimately, we're dealing with people like the HSE and latterly the government, and they're big beasts, and they have an awful lot of sway. So yeah, and I think it's going to be. I actually think it's quite positive. I think it is the start of this process of professionalizing the supply chain for venison and making it, it's one more string to the bow of making it something that supermarkets can look at and say, yeah, look, we're happy to stock venison in our supermarkets, and hopefully in time it will have an impact on the market, but it all sort of remains to be seen still.
This is a completely genuinely unplanned segue. You were talking about professionalizing the industry, and one of the other developments that has come along is the DMC3.
Yeah, the deer management course.
Certificate.
I think you're right. Deer management certificate.
Level 3.
And it doesn't follow
the Shooting and Hunting Academy.
There we are. I mean, it doesn't follow the same acronym as the other two, the DSC, the DMC. It is obviously different because they are from different organisations, essentially, is my understanding. And I think this has the potential to be something that's fairly contentious in the industry. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the actual uptake of this is, but also to see how landowners, the big estates, people like the Forestry Commission, those who employ deer managers and offer sporting leases and hold those sort of responsibilities, how they view it, and whether they end up adopting something like this. Because, yeah, I think there's been a fair few skeptical comments out there about it. So I was looking at the statistics on this the other day, and there are, I think, in the mid 30,000 DSC1 holders. I can't remember the exact figure, and there are about
34,249 completed DSC1s and 36,734 registered DSC1s.
Okay, and then the DSC2 number is around, I think, the 6,000 mark completed.
5,641 completed and 8,727 registered.
Yeah, and obviously the background to all of this is that the DSC2 was made, I don't want to say easier, but it was the entry requirements were slimmed down to requiring only one supervised stalk. And Tom knows more about this because you've done it fairly recently. But you essentially have to go out with an accredited witness, shoot a deer, not from a high seat, stalk a deer, don't you?
Yeah. Well, you can shoot it from a high seat, but you then have to show a stalk into a deer. So the easiest way to do it is to go out, stalk into a deer, and then shoot it. If you shot your deer from a high seat, you've then got to find another deer to try and stalk into, but not necessarily take the shot. And I think, and someone will probably have to correct me on this, I think the DSC2 was reduced from 3 stalks to 1 stalk because one cost was a barrier to entry for some people, in terms of if you were having to pay an accredited witness to go out, it was probably highly unlikely that for your 3 stalks you would be successful, both in the sense of finding an animal, shooting the animal, but also passing the requirements. And so some people might have to do it 9 times, and if you're paying 100 quid each time, you're not far off paying £1,000 just to do the 3 accredited stalks, as well as your fee to sign up for the course in the first place. So I think it was reduced down to 1 stalk to try and overcome that element, and also, and it's partly linked to that, but the time requirement, in terms of, again, if someone was having to do 3 stalks and it took them, let's say, a few attempts, there was quite a lot of time to try and get people through. And I think there was the feeling, and I sort of, to some extent, agree, in that only 16% of DSC1 qualified individuals have gone on to do their DSC2. And I wonder if that's because a lot of them have looked at it and gone, oh, it's too much time and effort, let's not bother. So I'm not saying that watering it down is necessarily a good thing, but it possibly encourages more people to strive for a higher level of achievement by making it slightly easier. And having done it, yes, I suppose you could say that someone gets lucky by shooting 1 deer and doing everything correctly. But I mean, and maybe 1 or 2 people do get very, very lucky and get through that way, but you still have to submit all the correct paperwork. You still have to know all the lymph nodes on the deer. You still have to know about all the notifiable diseases, and you still have a telephone interview with an examiner. To my mind, you'd have to be incredibly lucky to sail through all of those things without really knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think the background to all of this is, my understanding is DMC3 has been brought in by a shooting and hunting academy, partly, as you say, Harry, as a way of providing the next step on from DSC2, because DSC2 has been lowered in its level of achievement, but partly also to try and help people who are wanting a career within the deer management industry. And yeah. I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I'm not sure I agree with it.
No, I think there's a fair amount of criticism out there. I think my view is that there is really no substitute for being in the field with an accredited witness and being in the classroom with somebody who you can interact with on a human level. You know, we live in a world now where there's so much that's done virtually. And I think it comes to the cost of a lot of people. You know, I feel really sorry for those people who've had to go through university or college during COVID and didn't have that human interaction whilst they were doing exams and teaching and all of those sort of things. And I just question, because my understanding, and this might not be right, but my understanding of the DMC3 is that it isn't something that's supervised. You know, you have to shoot, I believe, in England 5 deer for one module and 5 for another, but none of those involve someone actually coming with you and witnessing how you've gone about the stalk. It is just really photographic evidence that you've culled an animal successfully. And yes, you can tell an awful lot from a photo, but I think, you know, that is a bit of a concern for quite a few people, myself included.
Yeah, I'm everyone's going to hate me because I've slated gamekeepers, I've slated the Forestry Commission, and I'm about to give the DMC3 some stick. It seems expensive to sign up to. It's £750 to enroll, and I think there are 4 modules to it. The first one is you submit evidence of other qualifications you've done, and that gets you a level of credits. And then, like you say, there's a module for invasive species and a module for non-invasive species, for which you just submit evidence that you have shot animals in that, and then you complete a deer management plan. And that, to me, seems slightly lightweight, actually, if I'm being really honest, in that you could get anybody to do your deer management plan and submit it on your behalf. You could get anyone to take photos of some deer that they've shot and just submit those on your behalf.
Well,
Yeah,
you
I'm
have to
I'm
have
not.
a photo, I think, of yourself with it and things like that. So I think there are some checks and balances involved in that, which I think you need in order to make that sort of work. The thing I'm not convinced by is that the naming of it implies that it's superior to the DSC2, by virtue of it being the 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, given your description of the DSC2, if that really is true. And I worry that if you looked at it on the face of it, you'd say, okay, well, look, it was 1, 2, 3, but it maybe isn't quite as straightforward as that. The DSC 1 and 2, I think, are quite distinct from this qualification.
Yeah. Well, I think, and time will tell on what I'm about to say, but I think it's slightly preying on people who want a career in the deer management world, in terms of sort of suggesting now that they've got to have done this course in order to be able to do that. Because the very nature, like you say, of it being named number 3, it sort of implies that, okay, well, if you want a career, you've probably got to achieve the highest level. And I mean, I've helped employ deer managers for clients in my day job before. I'd never have looked at somebody and gone, oh, well, they've only got DSC1 and DSC2. They've not got DMC3. Let's not give them a job. We've employed people who've not even had DSC1 because they've got a good level of practical knowledge or experience, or they're working towards it, or you can just tell they're the right individual. And I just fear there'll be some people out there who will be so keen to get themselves noticed and ahead that they'll pay the £750 to enroll and do this course. I'm not sure what they'll get back for it.
Yeah, I think that is possibly the key criticism here. So that's been quite interesting, but that's also, we're discussing this in November. It's really only come out, I think, in the last, I want to say, month. So it'll be interesting to see how the industry reacts to that, and I'll be very interested to see how many people, if they release any data actually on how many people achieve it.
I think the one caveat I would say is that I don't disagree with the idea of more deer stalkers being better qualified, in that I looked at the number of firearms certificate holders before we recorded this podcast and the number of people who've done their DSC2, and only 3.8% of all firearms certificate holders have done their DSC2, and only 16% of DSC1 people have gone on to do DSC2, which to me feels like quite a low level. And
Yeah.
if it was me and I had any sway in the industry, instead of bringing in the DMC3, I would probably try and encourage more people to do the DSC1 and DSC2 and kind of bring up the base level of training and knowledge in the industry before we start introducing other stuff at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is right. And I think if anyone is sat there on the fence thinking, oh, I've shot a few deer, but don't really need my DSD1, I'm sort of thinking about it. I think I was in that camp when I first started, having done a lot of stalking with a mentor, but actually thinking I knew a lot. But go out and do it. It's such a valuable qualification, and it is very much so now becoming the bare minimum. I think we organise cull days. We do a lot of, as you say, this sort of stuff as part of our day job, and I think it is now pretty well adopted that you really need that as an absolute bare minimum.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's an interesting development, but it'll be interesting to see how that moves on.
We're definitely going to get cancelled after this episode, Harry, and it is
Yeah,
it is entirely my fault.
You've chosen violence today, Tom, and I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's because your dog's made a mess of your floor, or the fact that you spent this morning in the snow trying and failing to shoot fallow deer, but something's gone wrong.
It could be any one of those different factors, or that I'm just a grumpy bugger. But I seemingly have declared war on everyone this evening. So apologies, everyone.
Yeah.
I just thought if you can't rely on us to be honest, what can you rely on us for?
Yeah, I think that's something that we hopefully bring. And it is just it's just two blokes sat in a room having a chat, really. But I think both of us always try and be as honest as we possibly can about these sort of things. And yeah, let's see how that all plays out. But I'm going to be really interested to see how it goes. I've completely forgotten what I was going to lead on to. Fuck.
Well, I think we've been recording for well over an hour now. So I was going to say good night to our lovely listeners, or good afternoon, or good morning, or whatever time of day you are listening to this podcast. Say thank you all for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and listening to mine and Harry's ramblings and my rantings. Normal service will resume probably on the next episode, where we'll probably have a guest. I'm saying that because we've not actually even thought that far ahead or booked anybody or anything. So hopefully normal service will resume. If not, you'll have us again, and I promise I'll be better behaved.
I like it. I think Candid Tom needs to come back, but we might not have many friends at the end of it. But
no, I mean, we do say this every episode. We'll watch our subscriber numbers just slowly peter off and disappear.
I think the comment section for this one might be a bit active, but yeah, as always, everyone, please do put your comments down there. We read every single one, and do write to us as well. Emails in the description, and we will hopefully catch you on the next one. Thank you very much for listening.